All right, Jim. It's great to have you with me today. I was I was amazed by your story when you were sharing it with me over the phone, probably a month or so, maybe a little bit more than that now. But I'm inspired to have you come on and share that with the audience. And I just want to say that first, we've connected through a group called CLA. So it's just a bunch of entrepreneurs getting together and sharing their expertise, getting to know each other and growing from there. So I'm glad we were able to connect through a group like that. So Jim, if you wouldn't mind just start opening up, just tell us who you are and a little bit about what you're doing, and we'll go backwards in time and explore how you got to where you are today.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Well, at my age, at 63, I don't mind going backwards in time. It's refreshing to go backwards in time. So no, my name is Jim Hetherington. I'm an author, speaker, coach, and I'm a life and business breakthrough specialist. That's what I call myself now, because I've been married for 41 years. I have been coaching and mentoring in some capacity for 34 years. I ran my own renovation construction company for 30 years. And in my spare time, and for those who cannot see me, I'm using air quotes, in my spare time, I was a youth pastor for 23 years. So that gave me a real passion to work with people and, help them through relationships. And then in the business world was teaching them how to find that balance between life and business. Because I think that's it's an age-old struggle, finding that balance between life and business. Because as entrepreneurs, especially, we love to jump into what we do. Somebody said to me the other day, I'll work 100 hours a week for myself so I don't have to work 40 for someone else, right? And then that's what happens as entrepreneurs. We'll just invest and do and grow, and we can get lost till, I'm guilty of this, till, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I can sometimes get lost on a project if it just needs to get done and I need to have it completed for a specific reason. And so it's easy to invest in the time. And unlike myself, I schedule everything in my phone. So everything is locked into a schedule. I even schedule time with my wife. Like, I just put it in there so I don't block it. I don't put anything else in that time. But oftentimes a lot of entrepreneurs, they'll just forget about that. Forget about their partner, forget about their family, forget about friends, forget about themselves, and just keep on going, keep on doing. And I'll share a little bit of my story. 15 years ago, life as I knew it came to an end. It was it was like halfway through, I was about 15 years into running my company, about that many years into youth ministry. And I have a wife, I have 2 children, and life was just really busy. I would spend 60, 70, 80 hours a week in my business. I had a small crew of guys, sub-trades. We had contracts for 12 to 18 months ahead of us. We were building homes, building vet hospitals. We were doing all kinds of stuff. And things were just continuing to grow. And on top of that, I was serving 20 to 24 hours a week as a youth leader, as a youth pastor. And our youth ministry was about 100 kids, so it wasn't a small, venture. Anybody ever been in a room with 100 teenagers can appreciate the energy. And, so you've got to have some skills of negotiation to keep 100 kids entertained and keep their attention for any period of time. And I just continued to work and do and serve and give. And then one day I was sitting in my car ready to go to yet another meeting. And I started up my vehicle, strapped on the seatbelt. I went to grab the gear shift to put it into reverse to back out of the driveway, and I froze. I sat there for 20 minutes staring at my hand, saying to myself, you know how to do this. You've done it thousands of times. Why can you not pull the car in gear? And my mind started to race, my heart started to race. And in the midst of that, all I could think about was, who's going to look after the meetings? Who's going to look after the youth? Who's going to look after my clients? Who's going to look after my employees? I wasn't concerned or even thinking about whether I was having a stroke or what was going on. But I sat there for 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, I had to shut the car off, go inside, make a phone call and tell them I wasn't coming to the meeting. And that was the beginning of a 2-year journey to get my life back. I had zero energy. I had nothing to give. I had to step out of leadership. My business went down to almost nothing. Employees went to work for other companies. I had to surrender a lot of the contracts and start just like baby steps, working my way up. It took me 6 months before I could work more than 2 or 3 days at a time. I would just get completely exhausted. And so I ended up just flipping my schedule upside down. Rather than putting me last, I put me first. And I still do that today. I have a 2 to 3 hour routine that I go through every morning. And that's how I start my day. And I don't start my day any other way. But at that time, I was just giving everything away. And as entrepreneurs, we can do that. We can give and serve and invest and just keep pushing the mark. And at times we need to sacrifice. At times we need to do that. But that needs to be an exception, not the rule. And so often we make it a rule that ignore birthdays in the family, ignore special occasions, ignore dance recitals, ignore all these different things and just continue to invest. But we need to step back and look at the relationships that we're building along the way and begin to start with our own heart, start with our own, investing time in ourselves so that we become our best. I always say that if we invest in ourselves and when we become our best version, others around us will naturally rise up and become their best version. We'll just draw that, it just creates a vortex once we invest in ourselves. And we cannot love others more than we love ourselves. You can't love up. You can love equally and love down, but you can't love up. So you need to level up in your heart to be able to express that and embrace that and extend that to others along the journey. So that's a little bit of a story of where I was 15 years ago.
Yeah. And that's a lot to take in. So, obviously it sounded like you learned how to prioritize things differently. And it's funny that you mentioned all this because we were just talking about this before we hit record. We were focusing priorities and there's stuff like that. So what was it like for your family, your friends or whatever, to see you just like come to a halt and like things just crash and, you did a flip, you started focusing on yourself? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, did other people look down on you? Like, you don't care about me anymore or whatever, right? Did you get some kind of feedback like that in a way, or maybe they just, stayed away from you?
Yeah, no, I did because of my position in leadership. It was perceived as that. It was perceived as you don't care anymore. You just dropped off the face of the earth. But people in my workspace and in a ministry space, they didn't understand what I was going through. They thought I was just slacking off. They thought I was just, they didn't understand the depth of it. Like I had zero energy. As my wife, the first few weeks after I experienced this situation, this burnout, I just grunted and groaned. Like I was just one word answers. And I know a lot of women will say, well, my husband's like that all the time. Well, it was, that wasn't me. I engaged in conversation. I engaged in the time we spent together, but I had zero. I had no energy. I had nothing, not even enough to talk. And that was the most challenging thing. But I noticed that going through that experience, a lot of the people that I was serving in leadership, they didn't know how to, they didn't know what to do with it. And they didn't know whether they should come and visit or not come and visit. And I can count on one hand the number of people, because where I served, there was probably about 400, 450 people there. And I can count on one hand the number of people that had asked how I was. The rest just kind of avoided you. And even for my wife and my two children, my kids were, 15 years ago, they were in their 20s. And they were upset at, everything outside, the work and in ministry and so on. And they were upset with them because they, in their eyes, that's what caused Dad to collapse. That's what caused him to go through this, not knowing that it was, that was my fault. It was, because like I've always told people, we teach people how to treat us. And I was just teaching people. It was okay. Just call on me. I'll do it. I'll work 24 hours and complete a task. It's okay. I don't need to sleep. I don't need to rest. And so, yeah, it was tough on everyone around me as they were processing this, because there was a lot of blame. And then, people outside that were connected to me, they didn't know what to do with it. They just I was just hands off. So we did lose, a lot of friendships, a lot of relationships during the time as well, going through the whole process.
Yeah, and there's people in that hand that you said, about 5 people or whatever, right? Those are probably the ones that are closest to you, to care about you. I mean, exactly all the other relationships I guess you had, I mean, how good were they really? You know, I mean, what kind of relationships were they? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess some of them could be business related, I guess, too. And, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal to them. I don't, you know, I have no idea.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, some were business related, some were ministry related, you know, so I recognize something, and this is a hard thing for people to understand or to really grasp, is that sometimes we're loved and appreciated just for our position. We're not loved and appreciated for who we are. We're just loved and appreciated for our position. So I had a position of authority. I have a position in leadership, and I was loved because of that. But once that position was removed, or I was removed from that position, the same love and respect wasn't extended. And it was the same in business. You know, people will love you as long as you're, you know, you got something to offer, you got something to give. There's very few that will still love you, even though you aren't giving or serving or doing. I always found it interesting. There was one client that really stuck out that I worked with. It was probably maybe about 15, 16 years into my company. Up to that point, you know, people couldn't care less if you were hurt or injured or sick. They just wanted their project completed, right? If I'm building a house, they don't care that I'm sick, or they don't care what's going on in my life. It's just, this is the due date by the 15th. This needs to be done, right? That's all they care about. But I had one client. I showed up at his house, and I was working out in a drive shed. It was a big farm, and we converted a barn into a house is what we did. It was a 40 foot by 65 foot barn with, you know, like we had five levels of scaffold in it to reach the peak of the roof to clad the roof or the ceiling inside. So we're working in one of the outbuildings, just doing a little bit of work, and he came out and he took one look at me, and I was just white as a ghost and barely moving. I mean, I just wasn't well at all, and I'm just kind of puttering away, just doing something, you know, because as entrepreneurs, you know what, we just think as long as I'm moving ahead a little bit, it'll get done, right? We can't stand still. We can't take a day off. And he came in, he took one look at me, and he said, Jim, he says, I want to know that I appreciate you being here, but he said, just go home. Like, this isn't that important that you don't take a day or two to take care of yourself. And it was probably the one client of all the clients I had that actually said that when I wasn't well or something was going on, that actually said, you know what, go home. I don't want you here. You know, I want you to go and take care of yourself. All the, you know, the majority of the others were like, nah, it's good. You're here. Keep doing it. Keep going. I don't care how sick you are. It's got to get done, you know, and that's the mentality they have. So people love you for what you can give oftentimes. And sometimes we just have to accept that. You know, that's just human nature. That's just the way it is.
Right. And so with this whole journey, you learn to appreciate yourself even more, take care of yourself even more. So I would imagine your health is getting better, and, you know, you're focusing on that primarily. And, you know, it's funny how you said the 2 hour thing in the morning, right? 2-3 hours. And it's just funny because today I try something different, right? And I usually do something for 2 hours or so, you know, taking my time. I don't rush through what I do in the morning.
Sure.
But I decided to just go on here and take care of some stuff right away, you know, just to flip it to see if I liked it or not. Did I like it? No. You know, I mean, it's not me. It was not for me, but, you know, I got done what I wanted to get done, and then I went to do what I normally do. So, I mean, would you be able to share what that is that you do for those 2-3 hours in the morning that get you going?
Sure. Yeah. No, I get up in the morning. So as soon as I get up in the morning, you know, couple big glasses of water, 1 or 2 glasses of water, just to kind of hydrate. And then I just pray, you know, I just give thanks for the fact that I got up for another day, you know, the fact that I got to open my eyes and put my feet on the floor and get out of bed, that I can move and get going. And then I will go into my room, into an exercise room, and I just hit the mat and I just start to stretch. I do stretching for, you know, 20 minutes or so. And then after that, then it's either a bike ride, a run, working out some weights or something like that. So the first hour is just kind of spent doing that. And then after I get cleaned up, showered, get a good breakfast, and then that's when I read. So I'll read. For me, it's scripture in the morning, just reading through scripture, praying, meditating on that, and then reading, you know, 15, 20 minutes in a book, you know, just something, personal development, something. I've always got, you know, a couple of books on the go, and then I'll spend some time doing that. And then I'll just kind of plan the day. I'll just, just kind of lay out the day in my mind of what I'm going to do. And again, just giving thanks for it, just being grateful for the opportunity to be able to do it. And that's my, 2 to 3 hours, depending on, because sometimes I'll get lost in the book a little bit longer. Sometimes I'll spend half an hour or so reading and spend a little bit more time in there. And I like to, I'll click on a YouTube and, support a couple of guys and just kind of, look at some short clips of just a motivational thing, an inspirational thing, just to kind of get some thoughts into my brain. And then I'll look at, a spiritual thing to, just to kind of get that part of me going. So for me, activating all those areas, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, just getting all of that moving first thing in the morning is what I like to do.
Yeah. So I do listen to stuff like that as well, the motivational stuff. But you're doing all this. How does it make you feel? Like, does it get you ready for the day and you're ready to take on whatever it is? And, how does it carry out is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's just become like, it's like getting dressed in the morning. I would feel naked if I ran out, in a pair of shorts and ran out for the day. So for me, it's just clothing, it's just putting on clothes and just kind of getting dressed. That's what I would relate it to, is just, the way I sit down and have a good meal for breakfast in the morning is the same way as reading something, that nourishes me spiritually, that nourishes me mentally. So for me, it's just clothing. I have occasionally, had to get up and go, like, say, I'm going to the airport or something, and, you're taking off and you got to be out of the door by 5 o'clock or something in the morning. Well, I'm not getting up at 3 o'clock or at 2 o'clock to spend a couple hours to do my thing. I'll just go, and then I'll spend an hour in the airport, because we got to be an hour or two anyway. So I'll spend a little hour and go through some stuff and get myself. But for me, it's just not the same. It's just kind of like putting the cart before the horse and trying to navigate through my day. Whereas years ago, I wouldn't think anything of it. I would just get up. I was one of these guys that just got up. If I needed to be somewhere by 6 a.m. and it took me 15 minutes, well, then I was up at 20 to 6 to take 5 minutes to get ready and out the door, so I'm there right on time. Whereas now, if I got to be someplace by 6, then, I need to have, more time just to get ready. So for me, it's just like getting dressed in the morning.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like that. Yeah. And what would you say to the people that are like saying stuff now? It's like grind, right? And there are people that say, just get up and just get to work, right? I mean, with you going through your journey and just shutting down, I mean, what would you say to them?
Yeah. My response to many people that have asked that question is simply this, that we could all be one meeting away from burnout. Because a week prior to that, I was at a leadership meeting at our church where I was dubbed the ever-ready bunny, because I was just go, do, never rested, always there, always doing, always planning, always on time, always everything. And then a week later, I'm flat on my back, unable to put two words together. So I say to people that we could be one meeting away from that same demise, because our bodies will just keep growing and going and doing and pouring out, but it has limits. As some doctors say, it's got a shelf life, right? And so we just don't know what that is. I was never on my radar, to think that physically and mentally, spiritually, emotionally, I could flatline, wasn't even on my radar. And so that's what I say to people is, don't push the limits. The fact that you can do it doesn't mean that it's healthy for you, right? We could all pull up to a drive-through window and order 6 hamburgers and probably guzzle them down. Just because we can do it doesn't mean it's healthy for us, doesn't mean that there's good benefits to it. And because we can go 12 and 14 and 16 and 18 hours a day doesn't mean it's necessarily good for us. Mm-hmm. I think there's something good about taking rest, having rest, being purposeful with it too. Like I schedule and block times, but even my rest time, I block it out. If I want a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday morning, I just block that out, and then I use it to to rest and get restored. Go for a walk, do something, just sit and binge watch a Netflix series. I mean, but I block that time in. And so that's what I would encourage people to do, is just to start, where you are. If you take 15 minutes a day to read and to pray and to kind of get yourself, double that, make it 30. If you're doing 30, double it, do 60. Start where you're at and just add to it, and then redefine exactly what you do through that time. Don't just, look at it and like you're punching a clock at work and say, okay, 60 minutes from now, I'm go. And then just sit anxiously waiting for that 60 minutes to come around so that you can take off. Be mindful of it, be aware of what you're doing, be purposeful in what you're doing. Bring some stuff in, by reading something or taking in something motivational, something spiritual on a YouTube channel. Allow someone's thoughts to help you form your own thoughts, get you started, just kind of spark the flame, as you were. But that's what I would say, is just because you can do it doesn't mean it's good for you. And you might be one meeting away from burnout.
That's good. And who are you proving, right? I mean, like, are you trying to prove somebody else or yourself? I mean, I get it. Like some people want things so bad, they have to hurry up and try and get it. Right. And more over time, I'm finding, and I'm hearing too, it's still just a slow race, right? So just take your time, be consistent, and just keep showing up. But these people are so like, I want it now, the instant gratification thing, and that's where they get hung up at. That's what I feel they get hung up at.
Yeah.
And, if you don't get it right away, then you're not making it, and that's unfortunate that people start thinking that way, because then they don't excel. They don't go after their dreams, their vision, they just stay stuck. They're mediocre. Do you, with you changing everything now, you're setting up your vacations and the time to be yourself and do all that stuff. So I would imagine that your focus and your priorities on your business are a lot lower, right? They're not, your day's not jam-packed with just focusing on entrepreneur work. Do you find yourself getting more done now that you flipped it around?
Yeah. I mean, we were just having that conversation just before we started. So, I mean, it's a great thing to pick up, but yeah, it's just, looking at, because I like to take breaks in between things, through my day. So, I might work 2 hours at the most, and then I'm going to take at least a, 20, 30 minute break, in between that stuff. And so, yeah, so for me, it's looking at each hour and saying, okay, how can I, maximize and get the most out of that hour? How can I, so it really comes down to, planning ahead of time, setting up the environment so that, everything is accessible so that I can get at something, and then just make the most of each hour, James Clear book, the Atomic Habits, was a great book just on stacking habits and stacking things. And what can I do in between things as I'm waiting. And I there's a difference between multitasking and, just kind of stacking and getting as much out of you as you can. Multitasking is trying to do 6 or 7 things at one time. Stacking is just adding elements in between that's going to layer and get greater success by the end of it. So yeah, for me, I just look at the hour and just say, okay, what can I do to maximize? So if I took 30 minutes, let's say, to check social media and emails and stuff, so I would try to, get that down to 20 minutes and just push myself, because, we're all guilty of it, right? We start checking social media posts, and then, oh, that's an interesting one. And then we start to drag a little bit. And next thing you know, we're heading down a rabbit hole, and we got to slap ourselves in the face, get ourselves back on track again. So I find that when I put a timer on myself, or just kind of give myself a block of time, that I'm not going out there. If I see something that I need to invest a little bit of time, or I want to explore a little bit more, I'll just make a note of it, or save it for later, and then just do that. So I think planning interruptions through the day is a good thing as well. I schedule my calls, when I check voicemail, when I check emails, when I check social media posts, I just have scheduled times. I block time for those interruptions, so that I'm not, you ever been in a conversation with someone and they've got their phone on, full blast, And every ring and ding and buzzer and beep that goes off, they're looking at it and they pick it up and they look at it. And I remember one time I was in a conversation with somebody and that actually went off, a phone call went off. And the guy looked at it, looked at me, and he said, "Do you mind if I take that?" And I said, I do mind. We scheduled this time. Unless that's a 5-alarm alert coming in from your partner, from your family, I do mind. And he just quietly put it on silent and sat it down. But we could just condition ourselves just to go to all the bups, all the beeps and everything, and just respond to them rather than scheduling those things out. So we can, I've just found that for me, I can save a whole lot of time if I just schedule moments throughout my day where I invest and check those things out and do that. And then I don't give it any other thought until it's time to, check it the next time or to respond the next time.
All right. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Now I'm glad you shared that you're getting more done with less time, because you're setting it up for that way. You're focusing on what is important to you, your priorities. Mm-hmm. So, short story for me, I remember going to I was applying at a job and the guy was there to interview me. And before we even started, he picked up his phone because somebody called him out in the plant or whatever. And that gave me a feeling like, who am I? Like he doesn't care, right? So needless to say, I didn't go any further than that, but it's a weird feeling, right? At least for me, it was, other people might not think that, I don't know. Yeah. But if you're showing up to be, it was just like scheduling the podcast, things happen, but if that person doesn't show up for a reason, then, it's just not meant to be. And sure. I don't take things personally, I just roll it off and let it.
Yeah. But how well would this interview go if all of a sudden, 2 or 3 times I go, hang on a second.
Yeah, exactly.
On mute while I take a phone call. I mean, it is about priority. And after a while, as a host, you were going, man, I just feel like garbage. Like, who am I sitting here, right? But I think, it's one of those rules that I always have. When I talk to people, I'm focused on that person. Even when I've got lots of people around me, I try to give 100% to that person as I'm engaging in conversation. If it's just light casual stuff and everybody's dancing around, that's one thing. But if it's a deep conversation, I'm zeroed in on that person. And I remember this really hit home to me a number of years ago. I spoke at an event with Mr. Jack Canfield, and he was brilliant at this. I mean, he was just getting tugged and people wanting to come up and get a picture with him and all this stuff. But when he locked in a conversation with a person, that was it. And I actually saw him. We were sitting around the dinner table together, and there was someone came and sat in between 2 chairs, in between him and the next guest. And they tried desperately to try to get Jack's attention, but his attention was to the person on the other side. And this person tapped him on the shoulder, tugged on his sleeve, gave him a little nudge, did everything he could to try to get Jack's attention. Finally, Jack went, "Excuse me." And he turned to this person and just said, "Look, I'll talk to you once I'm done this conversation. This is where my focus is right now. You're next." And he turned back around. No apologies, no nothing. It's just, this is where my attention is. And so I thought, well, if it's good enough for Jack, then it's good enough for me to continue to reinforce that and just continue to do that to the best of my ability. And I think if we did that more in our culture, it would change, but we excuse that behavior.
Yeah. And I think that person he should feel appreciated that he said that to him, because then he can get that focus and attention when he talks to him.
That's right. Yeah. It goes both ways.
Yeah. Jim, I know you got some other stuff going on and everything, I don't know everything that you do in business, but if you don't mind sharing what you do and how you can help others, you feel free to share how people can connect with you and what that is.
Sure. Yeah. No. So I've always been the relationship guy, and several years ago, I just got thinking, I got all this business experience, and that's really important, like teaching key elements like that, like respecting people and focusing on them and so on. And so I began to work with entrepreneurs and business owners, just encouraging them on their journey, finding that balance, right, between life and business, and really just defining what that looks like for them. So I started to work with people like that. Then it started to be more focused on businesses, like, people had side hustles or just kind of a change of life, the midlife crisis thing. I've spent 20 years in a career and this isn't my passion. This is my passion. And so I would take that passion and we'd begin to explore and look at it and just build out a business model and help them to turn it into, more of a passion for profit and just help to generate income and make income. And so we did all that. And about 7 years ago, when I wrote my first book, I really fell in love with the book writing process. I loved the idea. Like, I'm dyslexic. I've got grade 9 education. I hated English growing up through school, and I barely passed. I think sometimes teachers just gave me a pass just to get me through and let me carry on. But I just despised it. And when I met my mentor that introduced me to writing a book and suggested the idea, and I wrote my first book, it just opened up a whole new world for me. And I never stopped thinking about the process and the journey of doing that, and recognized that writing the book, although it's hard, that's the easy part. It's the after, it's the marketing, it's the promoting, it's the, what do you do next kind of thing out of it. And so over the last few years, I've really began to work with authors and entrepreneurs to either get out their first book or help them to create continuity programs out of their information and to leverage that. And so that's what I've really turned my focus to. I speak a lot on relationships in that still, but mostly how it relates to us, finding our story, getting to that place of really coming to a place of healing so that we can take our story and begin to share it with the world. Because I think everybody's got a story. Mm-hmm. And if we, and a story that we learn the most valuable lessons from is a story that's, really worth sharing. And so I help people come to the place where they really understand their story. And then I've created my own writing system where I teach them how to write. And then out of that, we can leverage that and create whatever they want to create out of it so that there's more than just a book. They can do, coaching programs, et cetera, out of it. So that's what I've been spending my time with. I launched a book publishing company last year, and my writing system and help people to really achieve next level success in their authorship journey. So that's what I'm spending a lot of my time doing right now.
That's awesome. So how did they connect with you then?
Yeah, so you can connect with me at jimh360.com. So that's my website that has all my social media, all my contacts, all my schedule, all my stuff on there. And you can learn about, it's called the 5X Authority Building System and my 5X Writing System. And so you can learn all about that. And I'm now just creating workshops. I used to teach the writing system just with authors and people that I worked with, but now I'm opening up to a workshop so that people can join me in there and learn the whole system and then apply it, so that I teach people to actually come in, they can write the book. I'll give them all the tools and even teach them how to set up their own KDP account so that they can even self-publish if that's the direction they want to go. Or if they want to go further, then we can talk about that and help them publish and work on getting all their content and out. So jimh360.com is the easiest way, and you can find the page for my 5X writing system and the 5X Authority Building System there.
Cool. And it I would imagine, is the workshop virtual?
Yes, it's going to be both. It's going to be virtual and in person. So I'm going to do both. So in my area, I know several people around here, of course, and so I'm going to invite them to come, in person. But then I'm going to have it in Zoom, because I have a lot of clients, spread right across Canada, into the U.S. and into Central South America and over in the UK. And so I want to do it virtually as well, so that I can share the love and just share the idea and the process with people.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So I have one question that I ask everybody else.
All right.
It's what are 3 key things you learned and used along your journey?
3 key things that I've learned along my journey. Well, self-care is the one thing I learned the hard way 15 years ago. Other care is looking out for others, treating others the way you would want them to treat you. And the third thing is to pour back, to give back in some capacity, right? It can't always be about business. We need to be philanthropic in some point in just giving back and just supporting and encouraging others to go, whether it's, serving in a local soup kitchen or, a food bank or doing a short-term mission trip someplace, but just to give back, to encourage and support others, to, help them along their journey.
Awesome. I appreciate sharing that. Jim, it was great to have you on here. I'm glad we connected. And I can see that we probably do this again, or at least have some kind of connection outside of this. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, John. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad that we got to connect as well. And I'm glad we got to do this.
Yeah, this is fun. Thank you.